SCBC TV representing South Africa on the board. For the past 10 months of our struggle, I'm very involved, and between December and June, I was the coordinator for South Africa. In this presentation, I seek to throw some light on the presentation done by Mr. Raymond Sama, who is our manager for SCTV. I hope that this presentation will bring some clarity, and most importantly, we will have a way forward that so that we all can put our efforts together to push the struggle forward. So this presentation, I would literally be sharing a follow-up on the SCBC 6 months financial report, which Mr. Raymond shared on his presentation. If you haven't watched this presentation, I would beg that you go and watch that presentation where he shows clearly the financial incomes of SCBC and expenditure from the month of May, June, July, August, obviously September and October for the 6 months that SCBC has existed. So in this presentation, I would X-ray more at the relationship between the SCBC and SCAPAC. I will talk briefly about how both relate, some of the allegations that have been made. I would show some of the SCBC documents in question, what I would like to know about SCAPAC, and I will also share my view on the way forward. So, on the 2nd of September, as you can see on this Skype conversation, this is a meeting that I created on Skype, and it was attended by 10 people. These were people from the SCAPAC board and SCBC board. And the intention of this meeting was so that both boards have an understanding of each other so that we can work together and foster the struggle forward. So we had this meeting on the 2nd of September. That's the date which we had this meeting. As resolutions of this meeting, SCAPAC requested for documents of SCBC. I know that there's been a lot of talk out there that SCAPAC requested for documents for SCBC and did not receive it. So this was the first meeting that SCAPAC and SCBC had, which I was present, members of the SCBC board were present, members of SCAPAC board were present, and they officially requested for the documents for SCBC. The response from SCBC was obviously, yes, we want to provide the documents for SCBC, but SCAPAC would have to, so that we have a record, provide an email address so that these documents be emailed to SCAPAC. And the argument that we put forth was that we cannot be sharing such documents with sensitive information on WhatsApp. So SCAPAC should provide an email address. At the end of the meeting, one person was chosen by SCAPAC, the SCAPAC team, Mr. Robert Fondi, as the responsible officer for SCAPAC. We were supposed to now email these documents to Mr. Robert. Now, on my screen is a WhatsApp message that I sent to Mr. Raymond on the 3rd of October. This was 1 month after our meeting, and after 1 month, I was wondering why Mr. Robert has not sent an email to request for the documents for SCAPAC. So I reached out to Mr. Robert around 11 p.m. South African time when I was driving from the studio, and I called and I asked him, we haven't received the email from you yet so that we can email you the documents. We had a brief chat and he said he has sent the email. So we didn't see the email, and the back and forth we ended up with him providing me his email address. This is his email address, LEKEAKA2000. Now, the next message, I will show you an email which Raymond forwarded to me 4 days later when we met, because I had called Robert again and Robert said he didn't receive the documents. So this is the message that Raymond forwarded to me. It says he had sent an email to Mr. Robert that morning, 4 minutes past midnight, so about an hour from when I spoke with Robert. He sent an email from info@scbctv.com. So the email reads, "Good day, Robert. Please find attached documents as requested. Should you need more information, please feel free to contact me. Kind regards, Raymond." This email contained 20 attachments. Somewhere along the line in our presentation, I'm going to reveal to you some of the documents that are found in this attachment, and I'm going to show you, of course, I'm going to blur out some of the sensitive information to ensure that our enemy doesn't get information they're not supposed to get. So that is proof that we did send the emails to Mr. Robert as we promised. The next accusation was raised as a concern over a video that the Vice Chairman, Mr. Wilfred Tassang, made. Before I even say this, Mr. Tassang, to me personally, is one of my heroes in the struggle, and he has inspired me so much with his humility, with his courage that he showed against La Republique and continues showing, and also with his love for God. So Mr. Tassang, to me personally, is an inspiration. When Mr. Tassang made this video, somewhere between the 11th and the 14th minute, he was kind of giving financial report, the payments that were made towards SCBC. I picked up this on the 13th minute, 55th second, where Mr. Tassang talked about money that was sent to South Africa from China. If I quote it, on the 29th of August, $2,000 was sent from China to South Africa. This was worrying because we had not received the money. So we reached out to China and we said they should send $2,000 to South Africa, SCBC. And they said no, they sent it to $2,000 to SCAPAC through Mr. Robert. Now if you look at this receipt, you would see that indeed, this is the receipt that was displayed on that video at the time when Mr. Tassang alluded that $2,000 was sent to South Africa. The amount on the receipt is $1,100. The name on the receipt is my name. The money was sent to me from China, and it's meant for SCBC. The date which this money was sent is somewhere here, and it says the 19th of September. This was the 19th of September. This was not the 29th of August that this money was sent. So however, we reached out to China and we requested that they show us if they sent money to South Africa, the $2,000 to South Africa. China then sent us a receipt of the money that they sent to Mr. Robert as proof that they did send $2,000. This is the receipt now that we got from China, and it says $2,000 was sent, and it was sent to Mr. Robert Fondi. So Mr. Robert Fondi again is the residence representative of SCAPAC, whose emails we are supposed to communicate the documents of SCBC to. So this is the receipt that shows that $2,000 was sent. It was sent to Mr. Robert. It wasn't sent to me, and it means that this money was sent to SCAPAC. It wasn't sent to SCBC. And this money again was sent the same day on the 19th of September 2017. Of course, I reached out to Mr. Robert and I said, please sir, there is a mix-up on Senior Tassang's video where it said $2,000 was sent to SCBC, and it's causing a lot of confusion out there. Please, can you kindly request SCAPAC to make an official statement and say this is a mix-up, that the money was sent to SCAPAC, not to SCBC. That request has not been met yet, and I'm hoping that it does so that there is clarity. So clearly you have seen that $2,000 that was alluded to be sent to South Africa, it was not sent to South Africa for SCBC, it was sent to America, to SCAPAC, not to SCBC. the next question that is out there and we're asking is, did the SG know about PayPal's existence or not? Now the SG, at this time, I'm referring to Mr. Tasang Wilfred, who was the SG right up to the 8th of July at the conclave. So this is an email that was sent to Mr. Tasang by Brownhill, who is part of the communications team. This email was sent to Mr. Tasang, Mr. Raymond was copied, Mr. Milan was copied, the admin secretary was copied, press was copied. So let me just go through. You can see here the email was sent to Mr. Tasang on the 1st of June. So let me go ahead and read the content of the email. This is a follow-up email of our conversation yesterday. I'm not a fan of WhatsApp when it comes to important matters. I've also included the admin office and the leadership council in copy. That is Mr. Milan in brackets. Please feel free to share with other required members. Recap. The attached document provides a report of funds raised from the 2nd of May, when the website was launched, till the 30th of May. Points touched upon. $9,000 raised through the website have been deposited into the SCAPAC account. Now this is the point where I want us to look at a bit. Total required by SCBC TV for the month of June and to be transferred by Mr. Tasang was $6,000. Now, it's important that we look at that statement. Why was SCBC expecting $6,000 to be transferred by Mr. Tasang? It is obvious. Mr. Tasang was the SG, Secretary General of the Secretariat. Obviously, he was the person who manages the organization. So it's obvious that in June, SCBC would send in an invoice to the Secretariat requesting for payment for its bills. Now, this $6,000 was requested because some of the money has come in from other sources. If you go back to Mr. Raymond's presentation, you will see exactly the other sources of money that came in June. So, again, this request was sent to the SG, to Mr. Tasang, because he was the SG. Now, point number 3, pending funds requiring clarification and possible release by Braintree. Braintree is the banking merchant house that works the back end of the website. Approximately 8,600, approximately 5,000 in pending transaction, and 3,600 in PayPal transaction. Full confirmation will be provided by the merchant. Now, this is another important point that I want us to note. The allegations out there have been that Mr. Milan, with the webmaster, created a secret PayPal account that is known only to them. But this email is pointing to the fact that the PayPal was not a secret account and the SG was informed about the PayPal. So communications, because the money is coming through the website, which is part of communications, did indeed reported to the SG about funds in the PayPal account. Now, the question is, how could he know that money was used from PayPal to pay SCBC if he was not informed? Now, the other point that I want you to note is the last statement on this communication, and it says, please follow up this email with any questions you have. WhatsApp is overwhelming and information gets easily drowned on WhatsApp. So the email, first of all, was a follow-up conversation on a conversation that Brownhill had with Mr. Tasang. So it was not some kind of hidden notice. No, they had a discussion about this content of this email, and after that discussion, Brownhill then followed up with this email. So the first money that was withdrawn from PayPal in June was withdrawn to pay back money that I used from my credit card. I drew $4,500 from my credit card because we were late to pay the TV bills for June. I knew that the TV was important, and I took the dive to draw the money from my account to pay the TV. And all this I did while notifying authorities that we have to do this to ensure that they don't cut off TV, because the money wasn't coming from SCAPAC. When I withdrew the money, I expected that the money would be repaid to me as soon as possible, so that I put it back in my credit card, so that at the end of the month the credit card doesn't charge me for when you overdraw your credit card, it charges you excess. You know, imagine how much $4,500 will be charged on a credit card repayment for a month. It's a lot of money. So I was putting pressure on, and the closest person that I knew was obviously Mr. Milan, who's part of the leadership council. I'm saying, please ensure that I get back this money before the 30 days and put back in my credit card account so that I don't get charged. And I called Milan. If I show you the records on my WhatsApp, this was happening like every 2 days. I was worried. The entire communications team, I was blowing up and down. Please let me get back the money as soon as possible. And that is why when Mr. Milan realized that there's money in the PayPal account, he said, please withdraw the money and refund Derric. If you look at the presentation that Raymond made, he stated clearly that the money was withdrawn from the PayPal account first to repay me. Now, Mr. Tessang in his video said money did come in from Belgium in July to repay me. Yes, the money did come in, and Raymond reported it on financial statement, and he said the money that came in from Belgium did added up to the expenses of the TV. And if you follow Raymond's presentation, you will see clearly that the numbers do add up. In conclusion on this email, I want to plead with fellow Southern Cameroonians. The first PayPal transaction was sent to me to repay money that I borrowed to pay the TV, because I believed that the TV was important. It was sent to me in person, not to Mr. Milan. So I would beg Southern Cameroonians that you don't talk about that transaction and PayPal and talk about Mr. Milan, because the money wasn't sent to Mr. Milan. Now, let us review some of the documents and establish some facts. I told you that on the email that Mr. Raymond sent to Mr. Robert, it had 20 attachments. So here are the attachments. Obviously, I've blurred out some of the information just to ensure that our enemy doesn't pick up, information of our service providers and can go after it and sabotage us. So these are the 20 documents that were emailed to Mr. Robert and on behalf of SCBC to SCAPAC. And these documents are the same documents that were sent to the audit committee. Remember, the chairman ordered an audit committee to audit all the state institutions, that is SCAPAC, SCBC, and the website. And this audit committee conducted an audit. If you look at the audit report, you will see the audit report of SCBC, and that audit report came about because they reviewed these documents. You will see on those audit reports, the audit report ended with some recommendations. So let us look at some of those documents to also establish facts. The first document I want us to look at is the contract. This is the first page of the contract. Obviously, I've blurred out information to ensure that we don't give out information to the enemy. So in this contract, you will see that the contract runs from the 1st of May 2017 and the contract ends on the 30th of April 2020. So it's a 24 months contract, and it says we need to send a notice of renewal 3 months prior to expiry. You'll see that the deposit amount was $11,000. Raymond breaks this down on his presentation, and you will see that the monthly payment to the satellite company is $9,000 a month. Next document, let's look at some of the numbers. Invoice for the live show component. This invoice states that we pay $500 a month for the live show component. Raymond already presented, and if you look at his presentation, you'll see all the expenses that SCBC does incur, and this is one of the expenses. So it's $500. Let's add it up. The next invoice is invoice for live streaming. When we live stream on our website and on our app, we are paying for that service, and also it's $499. Raymond's presentation also showed this record. The next invoice is invoice for satellite fees. So we need to confirm that indeed the invoice comes $9,000. That's how much we pay for satellite fees. The next confirmation is the rentals. From August, we started renting a studio. You can see here, from the 3rd of August, we got a contract, and it says that studio is paid 11,000 rands a month. That's a deposit that we paid. We paid about 1 week late, and we had a discount, so we paid 9,580 rands. So in total, the deposit, as the records show on the presentation that Raymond made, was 22,430 rands point 65 cents. So you can see that's the invoice for studio rentals. The next is all the monies that is sent to SCBC, either from a community or from an individual, as responded to with an acknowledgement receipt, acknowledgement of income receipt. So this is a sample receipt that was sent to the UK community when they sent money to SCBC. So when you send money to SCBC, you get this receipt. So if you look at the video that Raymond presented, you will see all the income that came to SCBC, and all the parties that sent the income, they did receive a receipt somewhat like this as proof of funds. That's how the audit is able to identify how much money has come into SCBC and reconcile with the expenses of SCBC to make a conclusion that, okay, all the money that came in for SCBC has indeed been used for SCBC or not. So when somebody sends money to SCBC, they get an acknowledgement receipt like this. Now, if somebody sends money to SCBC and did not get an acknowledgement like this, and the amount doesn't reflect on Raymond's presentation, it is the right time for that person to come up and say, why was my amount not added on that receipt? Now, how much does SCBC really cost? Okay, we've heard $9,000 for satellite fees, $499 for live streaming, online live streaming, $500 for the live show component, and we have the studio rentals, obviously electricity that is being paid. So let us look at those are the things that our community is paying. We are paying service providers, the satellite fees, live streaming, live show component. But then, what about the logistics of running SCBC? To run SCBC, drive up and down to record shows, our content providers, content production, the equipment for SCBC, time of volunteers. This is cost that do exist for SCBC to be able to function. Yeah, obviously some of the costs that we pay is rentals, we pay rent, we pay bank charges, we pay electricity. So this above is the cost that we Southern Cameroonians indeed pay for SCBC. Obviously some of the costs that we pay is rentals, we pay rent, we pay bank charges, we pay electricity. So this above is the cost that we Southern Cameroonians indeed pay for SCBC. This below is cost that SCBC does incur, but this cost is borne by the volunteers that are working to ensure that you are watching SCBC 24/7. This cost below the logistics, content production, the equipment, and the time that people volunteer into ensuring that SCBC does run. It's a sacrifice that some Southern Cameroonians are making to ensure that this project is realistic. And when you talk about content providers, I'm thinking of somebody like Dr. Ngasa in Germany. I'm thinking of somebody like Mr. Ambe in America. I'm thinking of Abomo Live. I'm thinking of Dexter Brains. I'm thinking of all those guys. All those people are heroes who put in a lot of time to produce the content that we play on SCBC, and that is why we are able to have our TV live 24 hours a day. Now, do you think that this production and the logistics of the production cost these volunteers some money? Of course, it costs a lot of money. But these are contributions that Southern Cameroonians are making behind the scenes for SCBC to be on air. Now, the equipment that SCBC use. Let me look at that. So, for example of costs, I told the technical director, please send me a kind of short list of what SCBC cost you personally. And he sent me a list of the equipment that we are borrowing from him. And you can see cameras, playout savers, transmission savers, professional production switchers. So in total, his equipment are worth $30,700 that we are borrowing and using to be able to have SCBC TV live, and we are borrowing all of this for free. This is from the director. Now, financial cost again to the director, the technical director. You will see that we ran SCBC from his own space for the first 4 months before we got our space. In that 4 months, he was paying internet for about $100, and notice the speed of his internet is about 5 times faster than the cheaper internet that we have at SCBC now, just to reduce cost. He pays for that internet. He pays for the electricity to run huge savers that we have, and we still have the savers now at his place because he has UPS power backups, and when there is power out, the TV still continues to be on. So that is part of the cost that he borne. He paid for the domain name of the website $10. He pays for hosting of the website $8 a month, and he's been paying that for 6 months. So roughly about $3,648 is cost that SCBC is costing the technical director. This is financial cost, and then we're using his equipment. So that's a lot of money. That's a lot of sacrifice that people are putting behind the scene. And before today, you have never heard about the technical director of SCBC, but this is somebody who's sacrificing so much, and this is somebody, these are heroes in the struggle, these are unsung heroes in the struggle that are fighting behind the scene to ensure that our struggle is moving forward. Now, I said I wanted to ask a few questions to SCAPAC, and I'm doing so because I've been paying my levies from the first day that the website went. I put on my card on that website, and I've been paying my levies. So as a citizen, levy-paying citizen, I want to ask a few questions to SCAPAC. And to ask those questions, I'm referring back to the second conclave, which I attended, the resolutions of the second conclave that held on the 8th and the 9th of April. And on those resolutions, I want to look at some particular resolution, and that is resolution 5 of conclave 2. Resolution 5 reads that the Leadership Council of SCACO shall ensure control and ownership of the Southern Cameroon Public Affairs Committee, SCAPAC, and shall appoint members to its board of directors. This is the conclave resolution that I want you to have in mind, and then I will ask some questions. Now, my questions, of course, I'm asking because I'm a citizenship paying levy, and when you pay your taxes, you do have a right to ask the Treasury questions. And I hope that once I ask those questions and SCAPAC answers the questions, we all will have a better understanding. So those questions, I will ask questions that would talk about the ownership of SCAPAC, the operations of SCAPAC, the allegiance of SCAPAC, and also about building trust in the struggle. It's important that as we work from different parts of the world in our own way contributing to the struggle, it's important that we build trust in this struggle. So also about building trust. So let me go straight to my questions. Key questions to SCAPAC. Why hasn't SCAPAC board been reconstituted? Obviously, I'm asking that question based on the resolution of conclave 2, resolution number 5, that stated that the Leadership Council was supposed to appoint members of the SCAPAC board. If you look at resolutions of conclave 3, there's another resolution on conclave 3 that stated the same thing. So why hasn't that happened for the past 6 months that SCAPAC has been managing funds for Southern Cameroon. Question 2 is, did Mr. Alex, Bianda, and Harriet, when they made some release, did they do this on behalf of SCAPAC? And I'm thinking that they did on behalf of SCAPAC because SCAPAC hasn't come out and say they did not do it on behalf of SCAPAC. And the next question will be, is SCAPAC a parallel organization? And obviously I'm asking this question because when you look at the back and forth, it's like SCAPAC decides that they need money for this, and then SCAPAC says, no, we cannot give you money for that. But at the same time, the money that is in SCAPAC is being raised on SCAPAC website, and SCAPAC put SCAPAC's account on the SCAPAC website as their treasury, and then SCAPAC sits on the leadership council and decide that these are the expenditures that we want to carry out. Then we go to our treasury and the treasury says no. So it's SCAPAC a parallel organization? Now, my next question is, how has SCAPAC functioned with the SCAPAC financial secretary? I'm saying this because at the second conclave, we voted for a financial secretary, and obviously a financial secretary should act as a financial minister, and this should be the person that should be talking about finances, not our vice chairman. So, and I haven't heard anything about SCAPAC and the financial secretary, and it's getting me confused here. We are supposed to have somebody in SCAPAC who handles finances, who runs SCAPAC finances. I voted for that person. How has SCAPAC functioned with the SCAPAC financial secretary? I would like to hear people of SCAPAC to throw more light on this so that I understand. Now, how much money in total has come into SCAPAC, and what has the disbursement criteria been? Why am I asking this question? I have looked at the audit reports. There is an audit report on the website which states exactly how much money goes into the website, exactly how much money is paid through credit cards that goes straight into SCAPAC, and exactly money that is paid through PayPal that stays in the PayPal account. We have seen the records of the PayPal account, income and expenses. But now, we also know that people do send direct checks to SCAPAC. We also do know that people do direct wire transfers to SCAPAC. But the audit report did not state the income of SCAPAC, how much money in total has come into SCAPAC, because obviously this other money from the checks and direct wire transfers is coming into SCAPAC. And obviously, as you see the receipt of $2,000, that is money that was sent to SCAPAC through Western Union from China. So obviously, there's money that has been sent to SCAPAC, and I know that that is not the first or the last transaction through Western Union, because I can remember way back in around April where China sent some money to SCAPAC, and that was around $2,500. So all this income has been coming into SCAPAC from different channels. I want to know how much money our treasury has collected. Then we will now be able to look at the expenses. Our treasury has collected $20,000, our treasury has spent $15,000, or our treasury has spent $21,000. So I would like to see those records. Now, next question. Does SCAPAC have an official email address? And this is a very funny rhetorical some money to SCAPAC, and that was around $2,500. So all this income has been coming into SCAPAC from different channels. I want to know how much money our treasury has collected. Then we will now be able to look at the expenses. Our treasury has collected $20,000, our treasury has spent $15,000, or our treasury has spent $21,000. So I would like to see those records. Now, next question. Does SCAPAC have an official email address? And this is a very funny rhetorical question, and I'm asking so because of the meeting that we had with SCAPAC, and obviously you understand SCAPAC is our treasury, and our treasury should have at least an official email address. We asked for the email address. Now, if they do have an email address, why we provided the email address for Mr. Robert instead of the email address for SCAPAC? Organizations function in a way that there is records, especially when they function from different locations. They function in a way that they keep records. So at least with an email address, SCAPAC can communicate officially, and there will be records. If the board members of SCAPAC, they leave today and the next ones come tomorrow, where do they find those records? How does SCAPAC keep the records? So does SCAPAC have an official email address? Or maybe Robert's email address is SCAPAC's official email address. Let them tell us. Now, my next or last question for now is, what's the process of disbursement of funds from SCAPAC? What is the criteria? What makes money requests, to be granted or to be denied? How do they give, when the law firm requests for money, what makes it a valid request or an invalid request? When SCBC asks for money, what is it, a valid request or an invalid request? What is that criteria? It's a question that I want SCAPAC to come out and answer so that we all know. So these are the questions that I have for SCAPAC for now, and I really hope that if these questions are answered, it would bring a lot of clarity, and we all would understand as we continue to put our money towards our struggle. We will have even more trust for our treasurer, for our treasury, for keeping our money and using our money diligently. Now, what is the way forward? As the voice of Ambazonia, SCBC must live up to expectations. Southern Cameroonians for the past 6 months have enjoyed SCBC, but then SCBC must also live up to expectation. Up to the 1st of October, when we restored our independence, SCBC did indeed play a great part, and all of us, we know the invaluable contribution that SCBC has made to moving the struggle up to the 1st of October. That is stage one. We prepare our people towards restoration, but now it's post-restoration of our independence, and SCBC needs to move on to stage two. Stage two, SCBC must establish itself as our voice. It must establish its structures. That is why you are seeing that SCBC now has a board. As of the third conclave, it was decided that SCBC will have a board of directors, and this the criteria for the board of directors is that each community around the world that wants to support SCBC would send one member as a representative onto the board of SCBC. So far, we have China, we have Germany, we have Italy, we have Canada, and we have South Africa. So many countries have not yet sent their representatives, and I don't know why. Is it that they don't support SCBC? Is that they don't like the work that SCBC is doing? And I'm appealing to country coordinators that they should please reach out to SCBC and to the secretariats for confirmation that these countries are indeed SCACUF supporting countries, or the governing council supporting countries. Then they reach out to the secretariat, nominate their member that joins the board of SCBC, so that the decisions that the board of SCBC is taking, they are able to build this organization into that organization that Ambazonians truly want, to truly represent Ambazonia. SCBC as our TV needs to start talking about our education. It needs to start talking about social life. It needs to start talking about the way forward a lot more. We need to have content that talks to the realities on the ground. We need to have news production. We need to have all of these things. But all of that is only going to happen if enough stakeholders come on board to hold so that SCBC has enough people to contribute to SCBC's existence, to contribute to building SCBC. Also, as a board member, I know that one of the key things that we are doing, which is one of the recommendations from the audit stated clearly that in as much as there is no financial misappropriation in SCBC, they advise that immediately SCBC should create a separate account and start managing its funds from one account. And in that light, the current board of directors have already decided to register SCBC in a different country, and the process of setting up an account, that registration has already happened. Thanks to the board and to members and the coordinators from that country, which I'm not going to mention. We have already registered SCBC, and the process of creating the account for SCBC is already happening, and we are hoping that once that account is out there, you can now go to the SCBC website and contribute to support the work of SCBC. So that is already happening. Also, one of the key things that the board of SCBC is looking at post the 1st of October is really to go back to that Conclave 3 resolution that an SCBC editorial board be created. The SCBC board right now is looking at going into that, ensuring that an editorial board is really created so that it watches our content, directs our content, that our content should speak to the Ambazonian people and to the Ambazonian struggle. So that is a process that the board is currently working on to establish this stage 2. So we'll have a board that is functional, we'll have an editorial board that is functional, and obviously a management team that has done phenomenal work for the past 6 months. Now, the third stage is that SCBC has to become sustainable. And for SCBC to become sustainable, you, the viewer of SCBC, you Southern Cameroonian, you well-wisher of Southern Cameroon, you have to support SCBC. You have to be watching SCBC, you have to download SCBC apps, you have to be using the SCBC website, you have to make SCBC popular, and of course you have to be donating to support the sustainability of SCBC. And also SCBC has to, as a TV house, putting its structures together, has to turn to start making some revenue through advertising. Maybe somewhere down the line the governing council might approve that SCBC sells some shares just to raise some money so that we can face the challenges that presenting themselves to SCBC, so that we can build a truly sustainable media house. Well, all our contributions do matter. Like you have seen, like yesterday I was teary when I listened to Comrade Roland Omene, the webmaster, the wonderful work that he has done. Somebody I've known for the past 7 months, because I'm the one whom he communicated with on the SCAPAC Facebook page. I created that page myself, and we communicated, and I got him on board, and the guy brought a lot. He sacrificed a lot. He took off his company staff for about a month to work on the SCAPAC website. The guy was working around the clock to ensure that we have the state-of-the-art website with all those functionalities that we do have today. So I just want to say thank you. All contribution matters. Like I'm in my mind, I'm thinking of so many people that have sacrificed a lot for the struggle that I know personally. Our technical director, you've heard how much financially this TV station is costing him personally, but this is a contribution that somebody is doing with a lot of pride. The team, the SCBC team, the time, the logistics, the drive around for SCBC, all of them, everybody does this from pocket. These are contributions that these people are making, and I know, of course, you watching this, you are doing your own contribution in your own way, and I really, really appreciate you. I'm so proud to be a Southern Cameroonian. I will not want to be a citizen of any other country. If we go back to December 2016, or getting all over in the struggle, I would ensure that I do even more for this struggle by the time we get to October 2017. So please keep contributing however you are contributing with your small little efforts, because I'm sure that all the small efforts that we put together, they are yielding some significant impact, and La Republique can testify to that. So I just want to thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me. God bless you. I am Derric Yuh, an SCBC board member representing South Africa, and this is the end of the presentation. Thank you once more. Fellow Southern Cameroonians, greetings to you. I am Derric Yuh. I am